Hey Milligan, I'm here for our next counselor conversation with Dr. J.P. Abner, Professor of Counseling, Psychology, Occupational Therapy, and General Good Study. He is here to tell us a little bit about how we can best learn and use our time studying together. So, Dr. Abner, welcome. Thank you for spending some time with us
You're
today.
Welcome.
I wonder if you could start by debunking some myths around study habits.
Sure, I think there's really two big myths about study habits that students get into a lot. I think that the first big myth is this idea that you have to sit still to study. A lot of times students have been taught all their lives that they need to have this really nice study area and it has to be clean, and that they go and that they study for hours and hours and hours. And the reality is that most of us study better on the move. And so most of us are going to study better pacing or on the elliptical or riding a bike. And granted, some of us will study better sitting down, but other folks are either going to need more frequent movement breaks or literally study on the move. I did a lot of my studying, particularly for my licensing exam, walking, listening to some of the things that I was supposed to be learning during that time. So different people are going to learn different ways, but sitting still for long periods of time tends to deaden your brain. Even if you're somebody who is sort of an introvert and contemplative and you need to be sitting still for long periods of time to study, you still want to take a break at least every 45 minutes to get up and to move, get the blood flowing to your brain. The other big study myth that people have is the idea of cramming for an exam as an effective means of studying. One of the biggest myths is that we learn best by studying for long periods of time. Generally speaking, we do a lot better studying and during short periods of time. So for example, you are typically going to learn more by, rather than studying humanities in a 2-hour block, to study humanities 20 minutes a day for 7 days. You would actually invest less time in that, but you would learn more by breaking it down. And I just did the math in my head, and that's wrong. But if you go 15 minutes a day, the math is right.
Okay.
So anyway, but breaking up your study bits into much shorter period and then doing it frequently is a much better way to study than trying to cram everything in a 6-hour session before the test. And also, when you break it down like that, you're more likely to remember it, pass the test. And in high school, we learned how to cram so that we could just pass the test and get out of high school. But now that you're in college, a lot of the stuff that you learn, you will be learning, that you will be using in your profession, and you want to keep it. And so it's much better to do that, breaking it into smaller bits over longer periods of time.
What about, so those are some things that students can do to study better during their time of actually sitting down and memorizing material, whatever it may be. What can students do outside of their time studying to improve the time of study and make it more effective?
Sure. The most important thing that students can do is sleep.
You might want to say that again to everybody.
The most important thing that students can do is sleep. Sleep is by far one of the greatest memory enhancements that we have as human beings. And when you don't get enough sleep, it is much harder for you to learn. And most students do not get enough sleep. Most students stay up too late or get up too early, depending on who their coach is, in order to work out or get to class or get to work. And your brain doesn't work very well unless you have about 7.5, 8 hours of sleep. Some of y'all can handle 4 hours of sleep every once in a while, but the reality is the research shows that if you are getting less than 4 hours of sleep, when you are driving, you're driving about at a blood alcohol level of 0.12, which is above the legal limit. So driving drowsy is the same thing as driving drunk. Same thing for studying drowsy is the same thing as studying drunk. So getting a good night's sleep is really important. I say this in Milligan 100, but I will say it again. If you find yourself in a situation where you have to cram the night before the test. Not the night before the test, because your brain is going to work better if you've got a good night's sleep.
Do you have any other just tips and tricks that you'd want to share about studying?
Sure. One of my biggest tips is be prepared to study anywhere. This is much easier today in the day of cell phones. A great idea for whatever class is giving you the most trouble to take pictures of your notes. And then if you find yourself waiting in line at a grocery store or stuck at a doctor's office, or your friend was supposed to show up at 5, but instead they show up at 5:20, you're not wasting that time. You can invest a good 10, 15, 20 minutes by learning some of your material. So being prepared to study when you have an unexpected gift of time is a really great strategy to have. The other great strategy is to, and once again, something I say in Milligan 100, but it bears repeating, schedule blocks to study. When you say, I'm going to study from 12 to 1 every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or I'm... Pause for car. That sounds like my car. Or when you say, I'm going to study every day, humanities every Tuesday from 1 to 2:30, for example. What happens then is that takes away the pressure of should you study or not. Because a lot of us spend a lot of time going, oh, I really need to study. I'll do it tomorrow. And that decision making is actually tiring. And so if you can take that decision making out of it, schedule your studying like a class, you will A, study more, and B, also be able to enjoy your free time more because your free time is really free.
You're not going to be in two places mentally. You'll just be able to get it done and move on.
Right. Almost every student can identify with going somewhere on Friday or Saturday and thinking to themselves, oh, I really need to be studying. When you schedule those study blocks, then you're not distracted by UPS trucks driving by. But when you schedule those study blocks, what occurs then is that you have studied, and then on Saturday when you want to go hike the Creeper Trail or something, you can go hike the Creeper Trail and just completely enjoy yourself because you've already knocked out your study for the week.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here at the Counseling Center, sharing your insights with us. We want to thank all of you Milligan folks for joining us. We wish you well and happy studying.
Happy studying.